October 24, 1960. Baikonur Cosmodrome. Under orders to defy warning and deliver a symbolic victory, Soviet commanders gathered hundreds of men around a fueled, unfinished missile. Moments later, a shockwave of fire erased them, their leader, and any trace of caution. The official story buried the truth for decades. But what really caused history's deadliest rocket disaster to unfold that day? Political pressure radiated from Moscow down to the Kazakh steppe. With the anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution looming on November 7th, every delay at Baikonur became a political liability. Marshal Mitrofan Nedelin, commander of the Strategic Missile Forces, made his presence felt at Site 41, refusing to leave the pad even as engineers voiced concern. Telegrams from the Defense Council and calls from party officials hammered the message: the R-16 must fly before the anniversary. The launch was not just a technical milestone, it was a test of national prestige, a demonstration for both Soviet leadership and the world. Hurried timelines and exhausted teams followed. Factory tests had barely wrapped when the missile was hurried to Baikonur. Assembly, fueling, and final checks were compressed into a few feverish days. Overnight shifts blurred the line between day and night as teams raced to meet the deadline. Standard procedures were bent or bypassed. Where Western practice demanded a cleared pad for hazardous work, Nedelin insisted that hundreds remain nearby to keep the schedule moving. Senior engineers and safety officers raised objections, but their authority was no match for the marshal's direct orders. Speed was the priority. According to later commission findings and memoirs, technical leads who pressed for delays found themselves ignored or quietly overruled. The risk was clear. A prototype missile loaded with volatile fuels, surrounded by workers and officers. An engineer later recalled that the expectation was simple. He said they were working for the party and for the motherland, and there could be no delays. In the shadow of the anniversary, caution was sacrificed to the calendar. The R-16 missile, standing at Site 41, was a prototype in every sense of the word. No previous flight, no operational history, just a series of hurried factory tests, followed by a frantic assembly at Baikonur. The vehicle was unfinished, and it carried the unanswered risks of an unproven design. The missile was fueled days in advance with a combination of UDMH and nitrogen tetroxide, a pairing known as hypergolic propellants. These chemicals are prized for their reliability in missile systems. The moment they touch, they ignite, leaving no room for hesitation or error. That same property meant that even the smallest leak or accidental contact could turn the entire rocket into a bomb. Technicians and engineers worked on live systems, making last-minute wiring changes and repairs, while the missile already held hundreds of tons of these volatile substances. Shop logs from that week record emergency cable replacements, rushed sequencer swaps, and incomplete insulation checks. Some circuits were energized before verification could be finished. Normal fuel safety procedures were largely ignored under the pressure to meet the schedule. The R-16 control systems, still in development, lacked the robust interlocks that would later become standard. In theory, safety devices should have barred any signal from reaching the engines while people were present. In practice, hurried repairs and improvised bypasses left the system vulnerable to a single stray current or a mistaken connection. Every person on the pad knew the danger. A single stray current, a missed connection, or a faulty relay could ignite the hypergolic mix. With so many working so close to a live missile, the risk was not abstract. The danger was immediate and potentially fatal. Crowded Site 41 became a maze of ladders, scaffolds, and work platforms, all pressed close around the R-16. Instead of clearing the area for hazardous operations, managers ordered hundreds of technicians, officers, and support staff to remain within the pad perimeter. Safety eyewitness diagrams and post-accident schematics show a dense cluster of people and equipment, with escape routes blocked by temporary structures and tool carts. Normal safety barriers were pushed back or ignored entirely, so workers could respond instantly to any new technical snag. Pressure, at least 6 separate countdown holds in the hours before the disaster, left many unsure which systems were live and which were safe. But the pressure to keep moving meant few dared to leave their posts. Untested. The crowd included engineers, mechanics, senior military observers, and administrative staff, all standing within meters of a fully fueled, untested missile. Disaster. In this environment, even a minor error or electrical fault threatened disaster for everyone present. Inside the R-16's control compartment, the heart of the disaster was wired in under pressure. Under pressure. The main sequencer, known as the PTR, had been swapped out and reconnected while the missile was already fueled. According to post-accident diagrams and commission records, at least one interlock relay, meant to block any signal to the second stage ignition, was either bypassed or miswired during these rushed repairs. Technicians, working against the clock, documented temporary jumper leads and incomplete insulation checks. On the circuit diagrams, the intended safety path was clear. A command should only reach the second stage ignition after the vehicle left the pad. But in reality, a direct electrical route now existed. When a technician reset a valve control switch during a countdown hold, a stray pulse traveled through the compromised circuit, bypassing the intended block. The PTR accepted the signal, energizing the second stage ignition system, while the first stage was still full of hypergolic propellant. This triggered the engine to fire on the pad, sending a jet of flame straight into the lower tanks. The system designed to prevent disaster had, through a chain of hurried fixes and missing safeguards, become the very fuse that lit the explosion. At 1845, a technician reset a valve control switch, and a stray electrical pulse ran through a hurriedly patched circuit. The main sequencer, compromised by incomplete insulation checks and a bypassed interlock, accepted the signal. In an instant, the second stage engine fired, while the first stage tanks remained brimming with hypergolic fuel. A jet of exhaust burst downward and slammed into the lower oxidizer tanks. The metal ruptured under the force, releasing a torrent of UDMH, unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine, and nitrogen tetroxide. These chemicals, designed to ignite on contact, mixed freely in the open air. The reaction was immediate. A sheet of flame swept outward from the base of the rocket. Post-accident engineering notes describe scorched cable looms and melted connectors at the interface bulkhead, evidence of the split-second chain reaction. The blast did not simply destroy hardware, it shattered the crowded perimeter and unleashed an inferno with no warning. The technical failure was no longer confined to wiring diagrams. It had become a catastrophe measured in human lives. The fireball tore across Site 41 in seconds, engulfing everyone within its reach. Those nearest the rocket were incinerated instantly. Others, caught by scaffolding or tangled in cables, had no chance to escape. Responders later recorded finding bodies where men had tried to crawl away, only to be overcome by toxic fumes or flames. Marshal Nedelin was among the dead, his authority and ambition ending at the edge of the blast. The official death toll remains uncertain, with estimates ranging from 60 to over 100, and the true number may never be known. For most, there was no warning, no time to react, only the sudden end brought by a single, catastrophic mistake. In a taped interview from 1991, a technician who survived the blast at Site 41 recalled the chaos in stark detail. He described hearing a sudden roar and feeling a wall of heat slam into the work platforms. People tried to run, but many were trapped by tangled scaffolding and thick smoke. The survivor remembered crawling through debris, his uniform smoldering, unable to see more than 1 meter ahead. He spoke of the silence that followed, broken only by distant shouts and the hiss of burning chemicals. Decades later, he still struggled to make sense of why so many had been kept so close to danger. Official silence descended over Baikonur within hours. Families received terse letters that claimed their loved ones had died in a routine training accident or in a plane crash. The Ministry of Defense issued strict directives: no details, no questions, absolute secrecy. For decades, even gravestones listed false locations. Relatives were given vague explanations, and memorial inscriptions concealed the real cause of death. A declassified letter surfaced in 1989, revealing the truth long hidden by institutional orders. Rocketry still punishes shortcuts, no matter the era or flag. Today, as launch schedules tighten and new space powers emerge, the true cost of neglecting safety is never just technical. In every bold advance, the lesson remains: pressure may launch rockets, but it buries caution.